We just wanted to give you a warm welcome. This week's obviously recorded, but we really hope that you enjoyed last week when we were live.
Yeah, we definitely enjoyed doing it live. It was really nice to be in the building together and start to make steps towards some sort of normality for us. We will be live streaming again. That wasn't just a one-off. One of the main things we're going to be live streaming is our communion service, which is happening this evening from 7:30 till 8:30. Now, if you weren't able to get a ticket to come along, then not all hope is lost. We are going to be live streaming the service so you can join in and share communion with us at home. And we're going to try and make it as interactive as possible with you guys.
So grab some bread and some wine or grape juice and join in with us, because we'd love you to be part of the service too.
Yeah, the other thing that's been pretty amazing is we've now had our second session with Alpha online over Zoom, which has been good fun. And we really appreciate all the prayers that you guys have given us, the support that we have from the church. The team have really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so please keep praying for us. Pray for the people who are joining in. We really want them to encounter God and obviously give their lives to Jesus. That would be amazing. That's the goal. So please do keep us in your prayers.
Very, very special notice for you guys, a very special message, all about us being God's masterpiece. So, what's a really important thing that you have in your lives that you rely on every day? Well, I don't know what it's for you, but for me, it's our phones.
Yep.
Our phones are really incredible pieces of equipment. They can do so many things.
Yeah, they can do Googling literally anything.
Yeah, if you get stuck, you can just Google something.
Yeah, they've got maps. You can phone someone on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
You can answer emails, but I don't know if kids you do that.
No.
You can play games.
Yeah, you can play games. You can do so many different things.
So many different things.
So many things. You can use it to take photos. And as we said, to keep in touch with loved ones. They're incredibly clever little pieces of kit. That's why they call them smartphones, because they're very, very smart. Yeah. But then it makes me think, how much more smart must the people be who design those phones? They must be incredibly intelligent. Do you think you could ever design a phone?
No way. I can barely use the phone sometimes.
I know. I definitely couldn't. And so then it got me thinking, what about our bodies then? Our bodies are even more clever and more complex than a phone.
Yeah, massively. Scientists
have tried to recreate parts of our body, but like prosthetic arms and legs and things like that, and it's never ever going to be the same as the real thing. Like, our bodies are so clever. Did you know that our noses on their own can smell up to 1 trillion different smells?
What?
And there's probably one of those smells we're very familiar with, and that's the smell of farts.
Martin!
It's true. Our noses can smell so many different types of things.
I wish we couldn't smell that.
The next thing is, what about our fingerprints then? These are a subtle little thing that we talk about sometimes, but we don't really know what they're for. Now, they can be used to identify someone, because all of our fingerprints are individual. Mm-hmm. But what about the other things our fingerprints are useful for? They help us to grip onto things.
Oh.
Yeah. They help us to absorb water. Okay. And they can also help stop blisters on our hands when we're using our hands a lot. It's so clever that our body's been designed with little things like that to help make life a bit easier.
Yeah.
And what about yawning? Do you know what yawning's for?
Well, I know I do it a lot when I'm tired.
Yeah, we do it a lot when we're tired. But actually, I read somewhere that yawning can be used to help regulate our body temperature. How amazing is that?
Did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. But the reality is our body's so cleverly designed, so intricately designed in such a way that it's so clever and can do so many amazing different things. And then if we think, like we were thinking about the phone, phones are so clever, they're so smart, but the people who create them are probably smarter. So what about our bodies then? Our bodies are so much more clever than a phone. Mm-hmm. They're so much smarter. They can do so many different things. Yeah. And they're such better designed. So if we think that the person who designed a phone is clever and smarter than a phone, well, what about the God that created us? He must be incredible if we are his masterpiece and his workmanship.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to even understand how a God could do that. But I definitely believe it. I can believe that this is what he's done for us and that our bodies are like that. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the Bible tells us that we are God's workmanship and that we are his masterpiece. And in response to that, he must think we're so special. Because if I think about a masterpiece or something I've created that I think's really good, I want to protect that. I want to look after it, and I think it's really special. Some of you might have artwork that you've done that's really special, and your parents might have put it on the fridge or something like that, or you might have framed it and put it in your bedroom, and you want to keep it safe. We are God's masterpiece and workmanship, and he thinks we're so, so special. And that should make us feel really, really good. It should encourage us to feel good about ourselves.
And it also says in Psalm 139, I will praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful and I know that full well. That's just saying how good God is, that he created us.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't matter how old you are or whatever your age might be. The reality is that this is the message that is for us of any age too.
Any age.
It's important for us to remember that we are God's masterpiece, that he thinks we're special and we're loved by him. And we're going to enter into a time of worship in a moment. And let's enter in a time of worship with that idea that we are loved by God and he thinks we're special. And as we approach his throne and as we worship him, do so with courage and boldness. That we, because of Jesus, we are able to worship him and communicate with a God that created our bodies, which is such incredible pieces of equipment. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to hand over to the worship team that are going to lead us in worship. So Father God, we want to thank you so much for who you are. We thank you that you love us. We thank you that you think we're special. And Lord Jesus, when you created us, you said we were very good. And when you looked at the world, you said it was only good. Lord, you think we are so special and we are your masterpiece and your handiwork. Thank you that even when we might look at ourselves and not see a lot, Lord Jesus, you look at us and you see great potential. And we love you, Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
King of love and grace, my guardian, all my hopes and fears are in your hands. I'm in your hands. Where you go, I'll go. Show me the way. Every step I'll take. Be now my guide. God on my side. You go before me. You're there beside me. And if I wander, love will find me. Goodness and mercy are yours, and we will trust in you. You are God, our great defender, strong in love, forever faithful. We are yours, and we will trust in you. You go before me, you're there beside me, and if I wander, love will find me. Goodness and mercy will always follow. You go before me, my guardian. You go before me, you're there beside me, and if I wander, love will find me. Goodness and mercy will always follow. You go before me, my guardian. Here is love, vast as the ocean, loving kindness as the flood. When the Prince of Life, our ransom, shed for us his precious blood, who his love will not remember, who can cease to sing his praise. He will never be forgotten throughout heaven's eternal days. On the mount of crucifixion, fountains open deep and wide, through the floodgates of God's mercy, flow the vast and gracious tide. Grace and love like mighty rivers, poured incessant from above, and heaven's peace and perfect justice kiss the guilty world in love. No love is higher, no love is wider, no love is deeper, no love is truer, no love is higher, no love is wider, no love is like your love, oh Lord. No love is higher, no love is wider, no love is deeper, no love is truer, no love is higher, no love is wider, no love is like your love, oh Lord.
Hi again, FCC. It's back to the dining room today. Can't quite do live streaming every week, I'm afraid, but we're trying to work towards it a bit more regularly, as you've probably already been told this morning. Today, we're moving on to chapter 2 of Ephesians. For once, the chapter division really works, and you'll often find that Paul's letters read in chunks, with hinge verses or phrases forming the end of one section of thought and then moving on to the next. And therefore is the classic case, of course. At the start of this chapter, we have a different one, and it's a bit more ominous in tone. As for you, dead in the water, is Paul's assessment of humanity. And it's a stark and a deliberately jarring note after his paean of praise and prayer, celebrating the unutterable breadth and majesty of God's wisdom and power in the previous chapter. And it's not what we like to tell ourselves, is it? We like to think that we're getting more sophisticated, more civilized, growing and learning all the time. And there is an element of truth in that, because we still bear that spark of divine creative life. We still bear the image of God, however brokenly, and therefore our societies do reflect that. If it wasn't for the goodness of God, there would be no goodness in any of our lives or our societies. But there is a fundamental problem with us that Paul terms sin. The sobering truth is that we're all infected with a disease that is infinitely more contagious and more deadly than COVID or cancer. Sin is about the way that we all want to do our own thing. As the prophet Isaiah put it 7 centuries before Christ, all we like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned into their own way. And Paul here talks about transgressions and sins. Transgressions being the way that we, in our ignorant arrogance, tread on God's bunions and unthinkingly trespass on his ways. While sin is about the times when we know full well that what we're thinking about is wrong, and then we go ahead and do it anyway. Sins of commission and sins of omission in the technical terminology. Really, that makes little practical difference, whether you're just sleepwalking through life following the herd, whether you're trying to do your best but you're hampered by your circumstances, whether you're a terrorist or a criminal mastermind, doesn't really matter. We're all still doing wrong. Take a trivial example. It doesn't matter whether you're a lockdown boy racer or whether you just missed the 30 sign. You're still liable to get a speeding ticket. Universally and tragically tainted by the disease of sinfulness, human beings are doomed to die. Just as surely as the law of entropy means that everything we make and build is doomed to rot, wither, fade and fall. To sin is to turn away from God, the source of life. And if you go on and cut yourself off from life, then death is the inevitable result. The reason that Paul's assessment sounds so shocking, so impudent even, is that it stands in stark contrast to the rest of what we see around us. It's rightly been said that the last thing a fish realises is that it's wet. We grow up just knowing that this is the way to do life. Follow your desires, we're told. Look after number one. I did it my way. If it feels good, do it. And if we buy into the humanist lie that we are merely naked apes, creatures of instinct, then it makes so much sense to live this way that most of us never stop and question whether that underlying assumption is actually true or not. And indeed, looking back at the previous verse, there is a malevolent spiritual force at work making sure that humanity does continue to think this way, reinforcing in 100 subtle and not so subtle ways that this is normal and seeking to tear down anyone who try and say different. The tragedy is that human beings who are created in the image of God as his viceroys over creation have come to think that they're no different and no better than the creatures we were actually made to rule over. All of us lived among them at one time, says Paul, gratifying the cravings of our sinful nature and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. There's worse to come, says Paul. The universe has a maker, a ruler, a judge. He is awesome, faithful, true, and unfortunately for us, just. And our devil-may-care attitude to life puts us on a collision course with him. God's wrath is a fearsome thing, but it's not an emotional thing. It's not some explosion of rage provoking a hail of brimstone on his unfortunate victims. God is faithful and true, and that means that he is unflinchingly faithful to the truth, utterly dedicated to what is good and right. And you better believe that's good news, because if there was even a hint of capriciousness in his nature, you and I would be smoking piles of ash on the floor right now. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, says the writer of the book of Lamentations. For the flip side of being committed to what is right is that he has to be utterly opposed to what is wrong. He will not dally with or excuse sin. He won't wink at it, in the old English phrase, pretend that somehow it doesn't matter. Were he ever to do so, he would no longer be good. He would no longer be God. And that implacable opposition to sin puts sinful, selfish humanity, you, me, and the man on the Clapham omnibus alike, on a collision course with him. Though we may not realise it, we're driving full tilt down the motorway of life, straight at the concrete wall of divine justice. And you just know that's not going to end well. Paul's pulling no punches here, partly because we're so good at self-deception, so willing to explain away and excuse our own sins, so wedded to deciding standards by comparison with others, especially if by doing so it puts us in a relatively good light, that we frankly need to have our faces held to the mirror until we actually see what's there, until we comprehend and admit to ourselves the depth of our depravity, the magnitude and sheer gall of our sinfulness. But he also paints a stark picture, because it's only when we realise how bad things are that we can see how great, how utterly breathtaking in its scope, its reach and effect is the plan God put into place to rescue us from the mess we've made for ourselves. It's only then that the true majesty and depth of God's love for us becomes clear. We may tell our children that we love them to the moon and back, but God loved us to death and back. We were dead in our sins, says Paul, but God. We were rebels against him, but God. We were enslaved by sin and our own selfish desires, but God, because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by sheer grace you've been saved. And what grace! The grandeur of God's plan of rescue for humankind, satisfying his justice while also reconciling his estranged people back to himself, shows the majestic depths of three aspects of his character, which, if we only grasp a little of them, should have us down on our faces before him in sheer love and gratitude. His mercy, his hesed, loving kindness, compassion, not dealing with us as we surely deserve to have it done. His selfless agape love, wanting the best for his children, whatever the cost to himself. And his unfathomable grace towards us, dealing with us as we surely do not deserve. We had no call on God, no leverage by which to twist his arm, no redeeming features at all. In fact, we were actively his enemies when he stepped in to save us. But God saw beyond all of that. He saw a path by which the crown of his creation, the ones he'd made to walk with him in the cool of the day, could be brought back to their right place, by which the fractured communion between human and divine could be restored, and ultimately even the whole creation liberated from its bondage to decay, we're told. And how did he do this? By uniting us with Christ in the same way that wherever a locomotive goes, the carriages and wagons attached behind must follow. So we've been hitched on to Jesus and caught a ride with him, as God exerted his mighty strength for the greatest jailbreak in history, bringing Jesus not just back from the dead, but punching a hole out the other side of death and into new creation, eternal life beyond. Because Jesus stooped down so far as to voluntarily share our death, so as we cling to him, we also get to share his resurrection life. 3 years ago now, we added Jo to our family. Initially, we knew nothing about her. We'd never met her, nor her parents, got no idea who she was. But we discovered that she'd won the heart of our son Matt. And so, because she was important to him, we chose that she would be important to us too. And that's a bit like what Paul means about us being accepted in the beloved, as the old King James Bible puts it. And then, of course, as we got to know her, we came to love her for her own sake, not just because she's Matt's wife. There's a far deeper reality behind this rather simple picture, but this image of us as the bride of Christ helps us grasp a little about what being united with Christ means, and Richard will talk about this and how it outworks in our lives in more detail next week. You could think of us, Paul says, as Christ's trophies, the reward for his suffering, as again Isaiah puts it in Isaiah 53. We tend to think of being or having a trophy wife in quite derogatory terms, don't we? But actually what the Father is now bringing about is what we see the final expression of in Revelation 5. It reminds you. Then I saw a lamb, John says, looking as if it had been slain, standing at the centre of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sits on the throne. That's God the Father. And when he'd taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the throne, and they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth." That's what God's up to. That's what he's creating and putting in place in and through the church, that we might display the magnitude of Christ's triumph. This kingdom of priests from all nations, called to love and serve with our God. We're his coronation robe. We are the mirror which reflects and magnifies his glory. One last thing to bring out of this wonderful passage. Paul wants to emphasise one more time that this is all God's doing. There's nothing we could have done to earn his favour. As Moses told the Israelites in Deuteronomy 7, the Lord didn't set his affection on you or choose you because you were more numerous or important than other peoples. You are the fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors that he brought you out with a mighty hand, redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And the same goes for us. We were nothing special, but God decided to choose us. It's all a matter of his choosing. Even the faith that rises within us may enable us to believe the good news that Jesus is the Son of God is not something we can work up. It's a gift of the Spirit, as Paul tells us in Corinthians. So there's no room for superiority. Well, of course God chose me, darling. Of course he would. And neither for ruling ourselves out. I'm too bad. God would never choose me. The wonder is that he chose any of us, in both senses of that phrase. But God did choose us. And instead of being proud of ourselves, our own works, what we can be proud of is that we're God's workmanship. The Greek word here is poema, where we get our word poem from. God sees you, sees us as his masterpiece, his greatest work of art, the best of his work and the crown of creation. We use a similar idea in the world of art, don't we? Where certain pictures, symphonies or sculptures are seen as the magnum opus, the greatest example of the genius of the artist or composer. Ones that demonstrate the height of their skill and creativity, take our breath away just contemplating them. And that is what we are. A display of God's skill, wisdom, creativity and power so breathtaking that it causes the very angels to fall down and worship him. And an astounding part of the epic of creating wisdom is that it's not static, but alive. Not so much a painting, but a beautifully crafted and intricately engineered watch. We have things to do as part of that ongoing story. Our lives are meant to echo it. You know, we read in Genesis 2:15 that God took Adam and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Work is not part of the fall. It's not a curse. We were always designed to work and create. Not surprising, because we're made in the image of this Creator God who's always at his work to this very day, as Jesus told us in John 5. But the really awesome thing is that God looked ahead through history. He saw what would be needed to be done today, here in Fareham, to advance his kingdom. And he looked at us. And he matched up our skills, our strengths, our spiritual gifts, our interests, with the things he needed doing to advance his kingdom. He has specific things in mind for you today to do your part in bringing in that kingdom. And those tasks are you-shaped. They fit who you are. More than that, as you do them, you'll come to understand more deeply who you really are. They will help you to grasp more fully who God is. And they will shape and mould you more completely into the likeness of one predestined to be conformed to the likeness of Christ, as Paul put it in Romans 8. Today, make the choice. Choose to leave behind the beguiling lies of the world. Choose, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 1000th, to throw yourself on God's mercy and find yourself caught up in his love. Choose to embrace the destiny God has for you, which will make you all that he has in mind for you to become. I found this prayer last week from the Dutch theologian and priest Henry Nouwen, and I think it sums up our response to today. So maybe you'd like to pray it with me. God, I so much want to be in control. I want to be the master of my own destiny. But still I know that you are saying, let me take you by the hand and lead you. Accept my love and trust that where I will bring you, the deepest desires of your heart will be fulfilled. Lord, open my hands to receive your gift of love today. Amen.
You can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Take this life and breathe on. This heart is now yours. You can have it all. Every part of my world. Take this life and breathe on. part of my world. Take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours. You can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. In all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. In all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in my darkest night. You are closer like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
I'm Matt. I did Alpha last year, 2019. I went to church with my great auntie from a young age. Neither one of my parents were religious, so I didn't grow up in a religious household. It was interesting growing up. A lot of stuff happened. I shut myself off from my faith. As a teenager, I dabbled in alcohol and certain drugs, and not proud of that, but it's in the past and you learn to live with that. My boss Sue is with the church, and I was asking her questions and she advised me to join Alpha. It was a few more years from there when I actually started doing the Alpha course. I completely lost my faith because of experiences that I'd had, and I thought to myself, if God, if you're real, why are you doing this to me? Why are you putting me through all this stuff? But then I realised that he was actually holding my hand as we were walking through this journey together. I found within the first week of being on the Alpha course, it was very welcoming, very helpful, and I had lots of questions that were answered. No question was off limit. You could ask anything you want and you got an honest answer, and over time I just kept coming back and my faith got stronger and my belief got stronger as well. If I don't pray, the coincidences don't happen. There's a lot of love and support around me, where before, even though you've got your friends and family, it didn't feel quite right, it didn't feel right, it didn't feel the same. And where now, the support network's there with my mental health, and all I have to do is just pop into church or speak to my home group, and all the problems that are there seem to dissipate. It's very hard until you experience it yourself, because I went in thinking to myself, this is mad, this is not going to help me, and within the first session I realised it was the place I needed to be to help me move forward with my life, to get back my relationship with God and within Jesus and walk with them on the journey. No matter what's going on, Jesus can help you and will support you through anything you're doing. That's what I learned pretty quickly.
Here at Fairham Community Church, we're going to be starting Alpha Online. We'd love you to join us. If, like Matt, you have questions about life, faith and your purpose, then Alpha's perfect for you, and we'd love to have you join us. We are living in a season of change and uncertainty, and a lot of us can feel out of control. But what Alpha can do for us, it can provide answers to some of those questions we've got, and an environment for us to explore those things and to find security and stability in a relationship with Jesus. And if you want to find out more, then we'd love you to join us.
Thank you, Graham, for that talk. That was really good. And thank you, worship team, for leading us into the presence of God. That was really, really good as well. We're just going to close now, but just a final reminder that tonight we will be doing the communion service. And please join in on the live stream if you can't make it in person. We really look forward to seeing you in person and in the live stream. Thank you.
Bye.